Welcome back, MTN Giants podcast. Week 1 for the Giants in the books, in a place where we always tend to be 0-1, embarrassing offense. That just seems to be what happens here the past few years. I saw some tweets going around about how bad the Giants offenses have been the last 3 years, which of course was the home opener in 2023 against Dallas, where they got shut out. Then of course was last year against the Vikings at home. I believe they scored 6 points. And then today against the Washington Commanders, the Giants can only muster up 6 points. And I saw this tweet from Talking Giants. The Giants are the first team to not score a touchdown in 3 straight season openers since the Lions in 1940 to 1942. And I don't know who to directly blame for that, because we've had different players, we've had different schemes, I guess, to a degree, different play callers, I guess you can specifically say. But I feel like that says a lot about your coaching. Like, how do you not have a touchdown in 3 straight openers? I just don't understand how that even happens. You have so long to prepare for these games. You know what's coming for the most part. It's not like Washington is that new of a team. I could see if it was last year, because there was a lot of newness, but we know who Washington is and what they like to do at this point, and the Giants still couldn't figure out a way to put the ball in the end zone, although they had so many chances to do it. We know about the 1st and goal on the 1. They settled for 3, and then the late chance that went over Wandale's head. So yeah, I mean, 6 points is awful. I really thought the Giants would compete in this game. Throughout the summer, I felt really confident for some reason that they would win this game. But as we got closer, Andrew Thomas was injured, and you hear some other stuff that wasn't sounding great. My confidence going into today wasn't as high as maybe it was a couple weeks ago. And it feels like all those good vibes the Giants built up over the past month and a half or so, they all feel like they're gone now, because it is a results-driven league. You have to win games. And if the Giants went out here today and lost 24-21 in a very competitive fashion, I would have said, all right, Washington's a great team. They made it to the Final Four last year, NFC Championship. It's like, all right, I get it. But to come out like this and to really just be overpowered in the trenches, which that's been a thing as long as football has been invented. If you lose that badly in the trenches, you're probably not going to win games, and that's what happened today. They couldn't run the ball. It felt like Russell Wilson had to run for his life, and at times ran into sacks and didn't take chances. There were some chances where Russell Wilson should have thrown the ball but just didn't. And then defensively it felt just like last year against Washington. That was the game, I think it was week 2, week 3, the Giants played at Washington, where Graham Gano got hurt like on the first play of the game, which was a whole debacle. But anyway, it felt a lot like that game, because in that game last year against Washington, the Giants had so many times where they would get the Commanders into like a 3rd and 15, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 11, even like a 2nd and 16, I think I saw converted today. But it feels like every time they got in those 3rd and long, even 3rd and medium, 2nd and long, it felt like almost every single time the Commanders would come away with a big Jaden Daniels run, a little swing pass to Austin Eckler where he gets by a bunch of guys, or Deebo Samuel catches a screen and he runs between guys and picks up way too many yards than he was supposed to, and things like that. So I'm still not sure what Shane Bowen does well, but I'm going to give it time and hope it figures itself out. There is a lot to talk about in this game, so of course, leave a like, subscribe, all that. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into it. We will start with the offense here, as we like to do. The Giants only had 231 offensive yards, 3.7 yards per play, as compared to 6.6 for the Commanders. They were really bad on 3rd down, I remember. Yeah, 4 of 16. Commanders were 4 for 11, so obviously a lot better. 4 of 16 is not going to get it done. I mentioned the Giants in the red zone, how bad they were, getting down to the 1, the 3, and not getting in the end zone. That's a big problem. For Russell Wilson in his Giants debut, there were some good things, but a lot of bad things as well. I think from just how he looked standpoint, like physically, he did look pretty quick and kind of spry and got out of some sticky situations in the pocket. But we also didn't see too many shots being taken, a lot of dump offs that were annoying. And yeah, as I said, he did miss a couple of open receivers that could have resulted in bigger plays. And I saw this Doug Analytics tweet. Russell Wilson had a negative 12.7 completion percentage over expected versus the Commanders. That's the 5th worst mark of Wilson's career since 2016. Russell Wilson also had a 45 completion percentage. That's the 6th worst of his entire career. So for Russell Wilson's standpoint, where he's going to be a future Hall of Famer in all likelihood, like, that was not a good game from him. But just watching it, it's hard to pin everything on Wilson. As I said, there were some things I wish he did better. There were some throws I wish he made, and I wish they just took some more deep shots and things like that. But I think a lot of it comes down to the trenches. I think the Washington defensive line just showed up from the beginning and just were a very dominant group. And the Giants offensive line, of course, missing Andrew Thomas, that's a big deal, but it shouldn't be this bad. It just feels like when they miss Thomas, everything goes to shit. Like, I know Thomas is great. He's one of the best left tackles in the game when he's healthy, but if one guy's missing, that shouldn't throw every single thing off. You should not go from like a top 15 unit in football when Thomas is healthy to being like bottom 5 when he's gone. I feel like that's too drastic of a drop off. But for Wilson, yeah, the completion percentage sucked. 168 passing yards, 4.5 yards per attempt. That's not going to get it done. The longest play was 25 yards, probably one of those Malik Neighbors. Maybe it was the one to Wandale, but yeah, Malik Neighbors had that really nice jump ball in like the third quarter. He did take 2 sacks, so yeah, Russell Wilson, I feel like did a good job in the pocket evading sacks in certain situations, had a couple of cool like shovel passes, but for the most part, you do expect better. The running backs, and that includes Russell as well, who had 8 carries for 44 yards. I mean, as I said, he looked kind of spry. He didn't look like 36 years old in this game. Like, he looked pretty good physically, but Tyrone Tracy, 10 carries for 24 yards. I was not too impressed for the most part. He almost had a fumble in this game where they ruled it incomplete. I felt like it could have gone either way. Cam Scatterbo, the stats don't look good, 2 carries for -3 yards, but when you watched him play, I think it was sometime, like when he made his debut, I think it was like late first quarter. He had a really nice pass blocking rep. Cam Scatterbo's pass blocking technique is not great. Like, he gets his head way too involved, and that's just dangerous, but he did get the job done. And then he had the play where I think he caught the ball in the flat, and he ran over 2 guys, basically. I think Frankie Louvu was one of them. And you just see the upside of Cam Scatterbo. So I hope he plays more. Like, I do want to see more of a 50-50 split. I'm not sure what the running back snap share was in this game. I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow. But we saw a tiny bit of Singletary. We saw not enough of Cam Scatterbo, but we saw 10 carries for Tyrone Tracy. Like, they had 15 carries in this game. I would like it to be maybe 6 for Tracy, 6 for Scatterbo, and maybe like 3 for Devin Singletary. Even if they took Singletary out of the offense, it wouldn't bother me. I don't think Devin Singletary offers too much at this point in his career. He had a nice 8-yard run, but it was very well blocked, so I don't want to say like that was all Devin Singletary. But rushing offense was not great. The receivers, Malik Neighbors, of course, was frustrated, and him and Brian Dable had that weird moment on the sideline. They both played it off and said, oh, we're just 2 competitive guys and we want to win, blah, blah, blah. So it's nothing really to worry about yet. Of course, those things can linger. We'll see. But 5 catches for 71 yards for Neighbors. They have 12 targets, which that's a pretty good number for a number 1 wide receiver. Wandale Robinson had a nice game. Like, I think we always joke about Wandale. He'll probably catch 74 passes for 602 yards this year. But, like, the guy did have some big first downs today. He also caught a 20-yard pass, but 6 catches for 55 yards. I feel like at least 3 of those were, like, big first down pickups. He picked up that first down on the out route on the first drive of the game. He had that one over the middle where he was in the slot and cut to the middle. He got tackled right before the marker, but got flipped over and got over the markers. So I thought Wandale played okay. Like, he was fine for his role. But Darius Slayton, 1 target the entire game, just that can't be enough. You can't have that. You sign the guy to an extension. He has to be more involved. Even Marcus Bowe somehow almost scored the first Giants touchdown. He got a target in the end zone. It went over his head, but that would have been quite the thing if Marcus Bowe was the Giants' first touchdown this year. Theo Johnson caught one of his 3 targets. He dropped one in the flat, which was a 3rd and long. It probably would not have mattered, but you would rather see him catch that than drop it. And Daniel Bellinger had that nice catch that got them down to like the 2 or 3 yard line. Of course, they didn't get in the end zone, but Bellinger had that nice catch. And at this point, based on how 2023 went and how quick they were to, well, not they, how quick Brian Dable was to pull the play calling away from Mike Kafka, I'm kind of curious, like, how long of a leash does Mike Kafka have? Like, if they have this type of performance next week against Dallas, which they should be better. I think the Giants will score at least a couple touchdowns next week, I hope, but it shouldn't be this bad. But if by chance it is that bad, like how long of a leash does Kafka have? I do want to see what happens there, and I'm sure Brian Dable will start to feel the pressure, and it kind of leads you to the whole, like, when will Jackson Dart make his debut? That's going to come up for sure, especially if they start 0-2. Then they have to face the Chiefs and probably go 0-3. It's all going to snowball. We know how this goes. And obviously a conversation has to be had about John Michael Schmitz, who this is a big year for him, and it just did not look great today. I think, look, for the entire offensive line, it wasn't great. There's not really anybody. Like, you would have to go back and watch the film and all that. But it felt like outside of Jermaine Illuminor, and maybe I'm just wrong about that, but I felt like outside of Illuminor, it felt like there was constant pressure the entire game, especially from the defensive tackles on Washington. They just got so much push up front, and as I said, Russell Wilson did not have many plays where he was able to stand back there and scan the field. And I know with James Hudson III getting a start at left tackle, it's not what you want. I'm not sure why. Like, I know it's his first game. I don't know why Marcus Bowe is not playing left tackle. I'm not saying James Hudson was like the worst left tackle I've seen today, but at the same time, Marcus Bowe looked really good. I know it's the preseason and he's probably playing against a bunch of guys who aren't going to make it to the NFL, but I don't know. I feel like with Bowe, you have so much more upside. He looked really good. So maybe at some point that happens, but I was kind of disappointed that they went with James Hudson. But ultimately, that's what Hudson was signed for. Like, I think they signed him because they knew Andrew Thomas's issue with the foot and figured he may not be ready for week 1, which is exactly what happened. And maybe this was the plan all along, just to play James Hudson from week 1, or they signed Forsythe as well. He apparently looked like crap throughout the preseason and training camp, so they didn't play him. For the Giants defense, I think the thing that really sums up this defensive performance is I kind of brought this up before, but this goes into it specifically. Bobby Skinner of Giants Nation, he brought up the Commanders offense versus the Giants defense. They had a 2nd and 16. They picked up the 16 yards. I remember that play. I forget who it was to. The Commanders had a few receivers today I'd never heard of. There was that guy Lane. There might have been another tight end in there I never heard of. But anyway, a 2nd and 19. They had a 13-yard pass and an 11-yard run right after that. A 2nd and 21. A 9-yard pass, then a 21-yard pass. A 2nd and 19. An 8-yard pass, incomplete, and a punt, so they did their job there. A 2nd and 14, defensive holding, automatic first down. A 2nd and 17, a 12-yard run, a 19-yard pass right after that. And a 2nd and 15, a 15-yard pass for a first down. So outside of one of those occasions where these are, as I said, 2nd and 16, 2nd and 19, 2nd and 21, 2nd and 19, 2nd and 14, 2nd and 17, 2nd and 15. The Commanders were in negative situations on offense all day with their down and distance. And somehow, I know Jaden's great. Jaden, you can't really play zone against him because he's always able to find the open guy in zone. He has that quick little pass to Zach Ertz or somebody, or Terry McLaurin running comebacks, and he usually finds the open guy. But if you turn your back in man coverage, he can run for a first down, as we see all the time. We saw maybe like 2 plays where Abdul Carter was a QB spy. But as I said earlier, like this was just like last year's game. You get them in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, but they converted more times than not, which you just cannot have that. And it's even more disappointing because, like, I know last year the defense was not great in terms of names, but you go out there this offseason, you get a Debo, you get Javon Holland, you spend the 3rd overall pick on a great defender, and it's like this crap is still happening. And that brings me back to Shane Bowen. Like, what does he really do at a high level? So I have to see it play out more. I mean, we have enough of a sample size with Shane Bowen, but with more talent now, I expect better results. I did want to bring up the Giants linebackers. Of course, Micah McFadden had that air cast on his leg, so that did not look great. So hopefully he's fine. Prayers to him, but that just did not look great from the beginning. You had Bobby Okereke, who somehow had 16 tackles, 7 solo, but I just don't know how that man had 16 tackles. It did not feel like it. I wanted to bring up Okereke and Darius Muasau, who Muasau was like, the 5th round pick a couple years ago? Might have been a 7th round pick, actually, but late pick, day 3. And I don't like what I saw from either of these guys. There was a play where it was a 3rd and long or a 2nd and long, one of those plays I probably just listed, like a 2nd and 15, 2nd and 17, and Jaden Daniels threw a swing pass to Austin Eckler, who's now 30. I could see if Eckler was like 22, 23 again, and he was his old shifty self with the Chargers. This is not Austin Eckler of old. But Bobby Okereke looked like he was stuck in quicksand against Eckler in the flat. Eckler just cut inside, and Okereke did not even get a fingertip on him, and he picked up the first down. Eckler did that spin out of a tackle and picked up the first down. But if you're Okereke, to not get a hand on the guy is pretty bad. Then I wanted to talk about Muasau, who, when Zach Ertz ran that angle route where he was going out, then in to the end zone for the eventual touchdown, if you watch that back, Muasau looked like he was stuck in quicksand. Like, he was so stiff and so slow. Like, both him and Okereke, they just look so stiff and slow. Like, I know we had Isaiah Simmons a couple of years ago, and that's a more athletic guy, but there's obviously limitations with him. I just feel like this Giants defense needs a great linebacker. You know, I know everybody wants a great linebacker, but this team desperately needs that because it feels like ever since Don Martindale left, obviously Bobby Okereke has not been great, and I feel like the rest of the Giants linebackers are Jags, just a guy, you know? Like, I don't think Micah McFadden was anything great when he was playing. I don't think Muasau was anything great. I really don't like Muasau that much, and Bobby Okereke the past 2 years has really not been that great. I will say Terry McLaurin was pretty quiet today. I mean, part of that could be he missed a lot of training camp and the contract holdout, so maybe it was just a slow start for him, but you have to give credit to Paulson Adebo for that because I'm sure he was covering him most of the game. Now, there was the play where I think McLaurin ran like a double move, and he definitely beat Adebo, which should have been like a 60-yard touchdown, and luckily Jaden Daniels overthrew him, so I do want to put that in there. But aside from that, it felt like McLaurin really did not do too much. McLaurin only had 2 catches for 27 yards. He almost had that one where they challenged it. I thought he caught it. We'll get to that later, but yeah, that was a weird situation. But a quiet game there for Terry McLaurin. And to be honest, we really saw no Deontay Banks in this game. A lot of it was Cordell Flott. I saw Deontay Banks play on like the first drive, maybe sometime early in the game. But aside from that, we didn't really see number 2 out there very much. It was a lot of Cordell Flott, where he had some issues with Deebo Samuel and guys like that. It wasn't like a great Cordell Flott game, but it could have been worse. And then Javon Holland, I wasn't too impressed today. It wasn't an awful game once again, but I just felt like there should have been more. The one Giants defender you come away thinking that guy played his ass off is Brian Burns. Now, I do have to give credit to Flott because Flott definitely was the reason Burns got that first sack, because they were trying to run a quick screen to Deebo, and Flott like sniffed it out the entire way, so Jaden pulled it back as he should have and just had to take a sack, and Brian Burns was there, so I have to give Cordell Flott credit for that one. I don't want to call it a coverage sack, but you get what I mean. Like, if Cordell Flott didn't jump that, it's probably not going to be a sack. So anyway, credit to Cordell Flott for that one. But Brian Burns looked really good, had some dominant moments in this game, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss. Kayvon Thibodeau had his moments. I feel like it was an up and down game for him. There were times he was beating his guy and he looked really good, but then also times where he went quiet, so you have to put that in there as well. And Abdul Carter, I mean, I want to see how many snaps he played. I'm not sure off the top of my head how many snaps he played, but he did get his hand on a punt block. It didn't really do too much because the punt still went like 30, 40 yards. Carter did get half a sack. He was playing quarterback spy at times. He looked all right against the run. So not the big Abdul Carter breakout game just yet, but I'm sure it's coming at some point. Drew Phillips had that really nice play. It was a 3rd and 2. They ran that quick pass to Deebo. I think it was one of those like misdirection plays, and Deebo tried to slip out to the right side, and then it was one-on-one basically, and Drew Phillips made a great tackle. But the main thing about this defense, and this goes back to last year as well, the Giants were maybe the worst team in football in this category last year, but turnovers. The Giants had no turnovers on defense, which was a massive issue last year. That's why they went out and got a Deebo, a guy that can make plays on the ball, and even why they got Abdul Carter and they got Javon Holland. Like, they want these guys to create turnovers, and I know it's only 1 week, but so far it has not happened. Like, I have my concerns. Like, once again, are we going to live through another year where this Giants defense can't get a freaking turnover? Because it's becoming a big issue. I know sometimes turnovers are a bit lucky and it's not the most like sticky stat, but with these names, you have to expect better. I know Washington's a good offense, and Cliff Kingsbury as a play caller has been good so far with the Commanders, but you have to be better. I mean, there's just too many good players on this defense. And as I said, if they can't get a good defensive season out of this group, assuming they stay healthy, right? But even today, they had most of their defensive guys. I know Micah McFadden left early, but I'm not going to act like Micah McFadden is Fred Warner out there. If you're Shane Bowen and you can't get a lot out of this defense, that it's going to say a lot about Shane Bowen. I said this in my season preview video. I was like, if you can't get a lot out of these guys, I don't know how Shane Bowen ever gets another defensive coordinator job ever again, because this defense on paper is way too talented to just be a crappy unit the entire year. So once again, maybe that changes and they play Dallas Robinson looked much better, and I know the Chiefs offense, they've lost a lot of firepower with Rice, and now Rice suspended and Worthy's out with the shoulder, so maybe they bounce back, but just based on how this game looked, it was awful. And I also wanted to say the Commanders definitely beat themselves in a lot of ways in this game. Zach Ertz had that drop on 3rd and 10. Javon Holland was trailing in coverage. You had a missed deep ball, as I pointed out before, the Paulson to Debo play, which should have been like a 60-yard touchdown. The Commanders had horrendous timeout management. It felt like every time I looked at the screen, they had one timeout remaining, and a lot of them were just stupid reasons to use a timeout. Marshawn Lattimore had that unnecessary roughness call that added 15 yards. I think the Giants were already on their side of the field anyway. And that might have been the possession where Graham Gano hit the 55-yard field goal, which, hey, shout out to Graham Gano. That was good to see. Then the Commanders screwed themselves out of 3 points right before halftime when Jaden Daniels just inexplicably threw the ball in the back of the end zone to the side of the field nobody was on. So I don't know how that happened, but that had a 10-second runoff. The Commanders had 3 points taken away that they should have had. Bobby Wagner had that stupid hands to the face on Russell Wilson, some former Seahawk on Seahawk action there. But even that should have been an interception, which of course that was called back because of the Wagner hands to the face. So things like that, you look at Washington, and they played far from a perfect game. Of course, Washington was the better team out there, and they were great in the trenches once again, but I just went over like 5 or 6 examples of how Washington did things that for most teams would lose them a game. But when you play a team like the Giants, you can afford to make those mistakes because the Giants really don't have offensive firepower that can make you pay for those mistakes. And the Giants defense, once again, does not get turnovers. So it's tough to win that way, and as games like this happen, the Jackson Dart thing comes up, as I mentioned before, and we'll see how quick the hook is. I doubt it's next week, but if they lay an egg in Dallas again, then yeah, it's going to get really loud really soon. And we can joke about Dallas all we want, but I have to be honest, they look really good on Thursday. Like, Dallas beat themselves more than the Eagles beat them. You take away even one of those 4 drops by CeeDee Lamb, you take away the, almost said Tony Pollard, the Miles Sanders fumble in Philly territory, like you take those things away, which those are kind of fluke plays, the Cowboys probably win that game in Philly. And Dak Prescott looks like he lost 15 pounds and looked great out there. I know his stats weren't great, but Dak Prescott, if you actually watched the game, looked really good. So I'm not expecting Dallas to be easy next week. I'm sure they'll be favored by, let's check actually. I'm going to guess 4.5 points just off the top of my head. Maybe more. Maybe 4.5, 5.5. Nailed it, yeah. 4.5 is what Dallas is favored by next week, so all right, I thought it'd be maybe a bit more, 4.5, 5.5, but 4.5 is the number right now. But they will be rightfully favored. And the Giants, it does not get much easier. Kansas City, Chargers, I mean, you get the Saints who kind of look competent today. But outside of that Saints game, there's really nothing easy coming up. So they have to find a way to get this win at Dallas. I know we came into the season, a lot of us, and myself included, saying like wins and losses don't really matter. You just want to see progress. But if they go into the bye week at 1-12 or 1-11, whatever the math is there, like it's going to be tough to keep jobs at the end of the year. You have to win some games. So I don't want to set off the panic alarm just yet, but I did think they were going to have a more competitive game, and to lose 21-6 where the Commanders made this whole list of mistakes in this game, it should have been a lot closer. So that leaves you concerned, but the Giants, once again, they look horrible in week 1s the past 3 years. It's unacceptable. I think it says a lot about the coaching staff, and I still don't know what Shane Bowen does at a high level. If you know in the comments, let me know. And maybe he does do stuff good. I can't say I used to watch the Giants All-22 film every single week when I had more time back in college, but of course I haven't done those videos in a few years now. If you're one of those people that watches every single play, like maybe you know something I don't about that, but just watching the game on TV, it's like, what the hell is Shane Bowen doing? Like, he sits in zone all game. There's not really any creative blitzes or pressure that's drawn up. They obviously get no turnovers, which once again, that's kind of a lucky stat here and there, but at the same time, it's like that lack of aggressiveness can also play into it. So we'll see where the season goes, but week 1 was a dud, and unfortunately as Giants fans, we are used to that. So leave in the comments how you felt about this one. Do you leave somewhat encouraged? Do you think the sky is falling and this is a 2-win team? What do you think? I mean, I still think they're going to win like 5 games this year, so I don't think they'll be that great, but I don't think they'll be as bad as last year. But it is disappointing because, as I said, the vibes were great just a couple weeks ago, and then as the game got closer and the regular season was approaching, I got a bit more nervous and was like, all right, maybe this team is not as good as I thought, because I really did think Andrew Thomas would be ready in time, but turns out he wasn't. So got to get AT back sooner than later. Maybe his debut will be week 3 against the Chiefs or something. I don't know. It could be next week for all we know, but you do want to make sure he's fully healthy. And it's just crazy how one guy missing from the offensive line makes them like the worst offensive line in football. So that part is annoying, but hopefully it gets fixed up. So we'll see what happens, and I will talk to you guys next time.